One of the things everybody says is great about our little part of BookTube here is the sense of community, and that's absolutely true, and that's been proven to me again this week with all the kindness and support that people have shown to Amy from Amy Gets Lit Media, whose home was wrecked by a hurricane, and people who I know have reached out to try to help her and express their concern for her. That's just proof of how strong the BookTube community is. By the way, I will leave links to Amy's Instagram page and her PayPal in the notes of this video in case you want to help, in case you want to check out kind of what's been going on with her and the damage to her home from Hurricane Ida. I'll leave that down there. But the other great thing about the community here is that it seems like people in our part of the community are so willing to have these kind of discussions about really all kinds of issues, and this is really one of my favorite things. It kind of explains, I think, in part why I make some of the videos that I made. And last week on Thursday, I put out a video called Dead Racist Authors, in which I attempted to kind of explain my approach to reading dead racist authors, and how I pick and choose, how I justify it, if you want to look at it that way. Because I do read a lot of dead racist authors. Hemingway, Faulkner, Balzac, an anti-Semite for much of his life, and so on. I read them, I enjoy them. I have multiple videos on my site. Trust me when I say I'm not trying to tell you not to read dead racist authors. Live racist authors, that's different, and I probably don't have a good enough opinion to make a video about that. But dead racist authors, I promise you, I read them, whether people think that's the right thing to do or not. I do, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do in that regard at all. But not only did we have, and I get a lot of really great response in the comment section, and I get to interact with people there, which is really one of the things I like about those videos. But I also was contacted by someone who we've connected through Voxer before, who had some questions about that video and about kind of my approach to these subjects, and kind of about why I have videos like that on my channel. This person was incredibly kind and truly curious, and they phrased all the questions far better than I'm probably going to here today. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to kind of change some of the wording, but hopefully address the same issues, because I want to be clear about what it is that I'm doing, and I want to answer those questions in case you wonder, ever see, you look at my channel and you see that I have a video up about critical race theory, about dead racist authors, about William Faulkner being a racist, or whatever it is, and you wonder, these things about me. So the first question this person asked, which I thought was really something that I wanted to address, is essentially why I identified myself in that video as a white cis male author, and why I said that then probably didn't make me the best judge of necessarily how other people might react to race and racism in novels. And I believe their point was, didn't that undermine everything I said after that? If I feel this need to point out that as a white cis male author, that I am coming to all these subjects from a position of privilege, doesn't that mean that I'm essentially saying my opinion doesn't matter or isn't very valid anymore? And so just to be clear about a couple of things. First, and we exchanged these ideas in Voxer, and like I said, a really great productive conversation. The first thing I would say is that I think being a white cis male, did I say author, a white cis male content producer or person in the United States of America, means that I do come at things from a position of privilege, that there are things I don't understand. And while I feel perfectly free to criticize works of fiction or nonfiction by people of any gender or race or however you want to look at it, I don't think I think that acknowledging that I have that privilege means that I have to realize that how I feel about things may not be how you feel about things, or about how someone else feels about things. And so if I'm going to talk about race, I guess I feel like I have to make sure that you understand that I'm talking about race from the point of view of a white cis male person, not author, which I think I've been saying, as a white cis male person. And that perspective, that point of view, is inherently going to be different because of different experiences than the point of view of a person of color. As I said in our conversation, no one's ever called me the N-word, and so I don't know what it's like to be called the N-word. I don't know how that feels. That's not something that's happened to me. So I'm not sure I can tell a person of color how they have to feel about a book that contains the N-word, and that's kind of the point of the video that I made. This kind of maybe, I don't know, obsession that it seems to be on my channel, I guess would be fair to say. It's kind of tendency on my channel to talk about race and racism is really born out of my own past experiences in growing up in a racist society with racist family members, certainly not my parents, and kind of then growing up in a racist society and feeling like, well, I'm not a racist, being kind of one of those white liberal people who patted themselves on the back saying, I'm not a racist, things like I have black friends and so on. And I came to realize really over the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years that really was just self-congratulation, and I had more growing to do, and a part of that growing was to try to identify the ways in which the privileged position I hold in American society as a white cis male person means that colors my attitudes and the way I view things. And there have been a number of times, not just on matters of race, but on matters related to LGBTQ plus community and others, where I've had to step back and say, what I said in this situation was not right, and my belief about this was not right, and I find myself, checking what I say against, is this something I'm saying from a position of privilege? Because I would like to eliminate those things. That's me. That's one of those things I want to do. I'm not telling you have to do it, and I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but for me, that's a part of, I guess, for lack of a better term, personal growth on my part. I want to, kind of eliminate those things that were, built into me by the society and the place where I lived, the time I grew up, that are offensive and are not right. I want to try to get rid of those things for me, so that I can try to grow. And even though I'm 54, I will tell you that once you've made up your mind that you are completely right about everything, and that you don't have any more growth to do, then you become stagnant, and I don't want to do that. So that's why there's so many videos, I guess, on my channel about race. That's why I talk about it. I decided when I made the channel that I was going to talk about the things I wanted to talk about, that I was going to address the issues I wanted to address, that however big this platform or this forum became for me, I was going to say the things I wanted to say, and I was going to make the videos I wanted to make. And as political and social issues have come up, I have made those videos, and that's why, because I want to use this platform to tell the truth, to try to present information in what I believe to be a factual way. So that's kind of a long answer. The other question this person asked me, and this is the second other question this person asked me on Voxer, had to do with, why do I appear to be so publicly pursuing diverse reading? Why do I, and again, I'm phrasing this badly, and the person who asked me the question phrased it beautifully. But I'm phrasing it badly because I can't remember exactly how to say it, and I don't want to try to look it up on my phone. But essentially they were saying, it seems like I'm perhaps intentionally joining in on read-alongs like Pride reading or Indigenous reading or Black History Month reading or Women in Translation Month reading to make a show of the fact that I'm reading diversely. And this is one of those situations, and again, this person phrased the question very, very nicely, and they weren't hostile or accusatory at all. They just legitimately wanted to know why I do those things on my channel, why that's something that I feel is important. What am I getting out of it? And the reality is that, in a sense, I guess, in terms of diverse reading, I'm kind of like a born-again Christian. I don't know if you've ever experienced what it's like to be a born-again Christian or been around them, but born-again Christians have a tendency to turn all kinds of their conversations, spend a lot of time talking about Christianity because they're excited, it's new to them, and they want to talk about it. Well, in a sense, that's what's true for me, because for pretty much my entire life, before I started BookTube, my reading was anything but diverse. I don't know if you've noticed, but when I do those where not to start with this author, most of those authors have been and will be white males. Guess who I've read the most of? You know, white males. I did do one on Toni Morrison because I've read a lot of Toni Morrison, but most of my Toni Morrison reading has actually been post-BookTube. I'd read 4 of her books before BookTube, and I believe 6 of her books since BookTube, if I'm not incorrect about that. And so, you know, BookTube has kind of made me aware that there are a lot more books out there. There was a long time in my life where I was a complete book snob, and I don't just mean in the sense of I only read literature, but I mean I thought that I knew and could pick out the best, the classic, the purest forms of American literature, the absolute best. I wanted to read those things. I wanted to master those things, and I wanted to be able to talk about those things. And you know, you can read a lot of Faulkner and a lot of Hemingway and a lot of Fitzgerald, and then you run out of stuff to read to a certain extent. I think I mentioned to you that I intentionally have not read all the short stories in Hemingway's collected short story collection, so I always had some Hemingway to read. And there was a time in my life where, you know, that's pretty much all I read, not necessarily for racist reasons, even though, you know, perhaps I was dismissive of female authors. Well, actually, I know I was dismissive of female authors. Perhaps I was dismissive of authors of color because I was such an incredible book snob. It wasn't just that I didn't read it wasn't just that I didn't read genre fiction. I just read the things I thought were acknowledged as classics. Well, having grown up in the 70s and gone to college in the 80s, classics were written by white men, and that's what I read. So if you think about what I've read, Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Faulkner, Balzac, Patrick O'Brien, and it's not the author's fault. I'm talking about me here, not them. You know, William Trevor. These are all white men. Now, I patted myself on the back in the day because, you know, I'd read a few Toni Morrisons, and I'd read Native Son by Richard Wright, and I'd read Invisible Man, you know, and I'd read things like that. I'd read Haruki Murakami, you know, so I've covered the Asian bases there. You know, it wasn't until I got on BookTube and I started watching videos and then started making videos of my own that I realized there was a whole world of books out there that I had just been ignoring for snobby, completely ridiculous reasons. I remember, I think one of the first comments I ever left on both a video from Steve Donahue and from Britta Bowler had to do with asking them, you know, their opinion about Hemingway. Well, Britta Bowler on her channel only really reads books by women. That's why her channel is called The Second Shelf, which he very kindly pointed out to me in that comment. And then, you know, Steve doesn't like Hemingway, so I got that too. But then, you know, I started watching all these channels and realizing there's all this stuff out there, and I felt like I was behind. I still feel like there's all this stuff that I'm not reading. You know, I hadn't read hardly anything from Australia. I hadn't read hardly anything from Asia. I hadn't read hardly anything by authors from the African continent. I hadn't read all that much, you know, Latin American literature, even though, you know, I'd read almost all of Gabriel Garcia Marquez and some Mario Vargas Llosa. I still haven't read very much from Caribbean authors, and there's just all these books out there and all these authors that I haven't read. And just, you know, in the last month, I read and reviewed books that before I never would have read. You know, A Ghost in the Throat by Darren Negriffa, an Irish woman writing about an Irish woman's keen poem that she wrote. The Yield by Tara June Winch, an Indigenous Australian author. At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop, a Senegalese author, and just I never would have read those books if it hadn't been for BookTube. So I join in on all these things so that it holds me accountable to reading more diversely. I do the Reading Women's Challenge, you know, with the 20 or 24 things on there, and I intentionally try to read those books because, you know, in my ignorance, I thought I'd read all the great books, which were mostly by white men, and in my ignorance, I didn't know where to start. And these read-alongs and these reading challenges give me a place to start to make my reading much more diverse, and I found that to be really rewarding. And that's why, I guess why I make a lot of videos about that and why I join in all those things. By the way, the same thing was true with Victorian literature and things like that. Anyway, I don't know exactly what the purpose of this was, but I thought those were really good questions. I enjoyed that conversation with the person over Voxer. I found it to be really, really rewarding, and I wanted to say thank you to them. I'm keeping them anonymous because they haven't told me if they wanted me to tell who they were, so I'm going to keep them anonymous. But thank you for inspiring this video and kind of leading off the other, and I hope this leads to more discussion. As always, look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and thank you for watching.